2022 is 50 years since the Stockholm Conference.
Redan 72 så lyfte han fram att vi borde ha en lagstiftning för att få slut på storskalig miljöförstöring.
We have a plan in the 2030 agenda and the climate agreement, but we're moving way too slow. So it's really time for action. To contribute to all this, we arrange a series of dialogue meetings focusing on action now and co-creation between stakeholders from business, academia, civil society and the public sector. And we include youth, our future leaders, as key actors. It's also time to let go of the silos and find new radical collaborations.
Right now we are 7.7 billion people at planet Earth. And if someone else doesn't exist, then it's up to us. My name is Stellan Nordahl, and I will be your host here today, your moderator. And this event is hosted by Initiative Foundation 2022. And we have a setup today, which means that we have a blended setup. We will be working together and co-creating the future together, both digitally and physically. So to help me with that, I have also a co-moderator called Erik Nilsson, who is right now in Zoom with you who are attending the Zoom meeting. We have an interesting dialogue program to accelerate sustainability. And first, I would like to present a guy who actually makes it possible today for us to be in this room and to have this meeting together. And I warmly welcome Ulrich, who is the founder of Royal Park Hospitality and Education Hub. So please join the stage, Ulrich. And can I say welcome at your place?
That sounds very good for me. Yes.
So please tell us a little bit about what is this place and what can we actually do here together?
Yeah, this is a destination includes hospitality, hotels, academic works, co-working stations. It's a kind of multi-purpose destination, and I've actually been owner of the facilities here for a pretty long time. Approximately 10 years ago, I decided to take over parts of the operations here, especially the hotel, and bring the destination into a future more sustainable one. So I think that's very much where we are now.
That sounds great. And for occasions like this, where you have both a studio set up, it's quite a new studio, right?
It's a brand new studio, and it's kind of made because the change in the world due to COVID and problems to meet physically. So it's a hybrid station for meetings and events, and as it seems necessary for the future to both be able to meet physically and also broadcast and meet virally.
Yeah, and today we're here to accelerate sustainability. So what a better place to be than the Royal Park Hospitality and Education Hub.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please stay, and we can warmly welcome the founder of the Foundation Initiative 2022, Helena Lindemark. Please join us on stage. This is something that is close to your heart. So please tell us a little bit why we're here today. And you also prepared a presentation, I guess.
Yes, I did. That's right. Thank you very much. And thank you very much to you for letting us be here. Yes, I prepared a presentation, and the photo that we see right now is from our first dialogue meeting after COVID, that is, or within, I would say. But this all started actually in 2014. When I started the company Sustainable Development Sweden AB with the purpose to accelerate sustainability based on that Sweden is actually seen as a role model within sustainability worldwide. When I was looking for this global project to do that, I realized that it's 50 years since the Stockholm Conference, as they just said in the movie that you saw a minute ago. and in 2022. So in 2017, we formed the 2022 Initiative Foundation to do just this, what we're doing.
So will you please share us the presentation?
Absolutely.
Yep.
This is a photo, or photos, from the first launch of the 2022 initiative, just before we launched the foundation. 3 years ago today, actually, we had the launch in Stockholm. So it's a bit of a birthday party today as well. And we also had with us at that time persons like Ulrich, who is now at UNDP in New York, and a lot of other people. Also, Jan Mårtensson, who was heading the work with the Stockholm Conference back in 1972. The Stockholm Conference in 1972, as I guess you all know that are here now, was the first UN conference on sustainable development that was held in Stockholm on the initiative of Sweden. And as I mentioned, I realized in 2014 that in 2022 is 50 years since the conference. And I thought, we should really reach far by then. We could maybe have sustainable societies, I thought back then. But then I changed my mind a bit and realized that we could at least come far because we have a lot of solutions. But in today's societies, we did a lot of things back in 72 and so on, forming UNEP and that. But the focus on economic growth has made us consume more than there is. And actually, if everyone would consume in the way we're doing in Sweden, we would need 4 Earths. And the theme of the Stockholm Conference was One Earth, and we only have 1 Earth, which is a bit like this tiny, like a blue marble, based on or compared to what we're using. So we've created a planetary emergency with several crises, and just maybe this crisis that we're in right now, the pandemic, might just make us change things. We have a plan, as we said in the movie, since 2015 in the 2030 Agenda and the Climate Agreement. Now it's the end of 2020, the decade of action, so it's really time for action. In 2022, it will not only be 50 years since the Stockholm Conference, but also halfway to 2030, since both those important agreements. And it's just 2 years from now. Sweden is said to be number 1 in the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. So there is a very important role for Sweden to lead the way. And actually, we all need to lead the way, as individuals, as organizations, as countries, as whatever we are, cities. So, what's happening? Doesn't work? Oops, okay, missed one. Yeah, and we also need to understand what the Sustainable Development Goals are about. And it's important to see the holistic picture. And to help you understand that, we use a compass, where instead of north, east, south, west, you have nature, education, economy, sustainable societies, and well-being. And to show that we need to turn things around, and that nature is the basis for our survival, we've turned the compass upside down. So the SDGs that are at the bottom, we just have to solve those in a sustainable way. And the ones that are related to education, economy, innovation, and lifestyle can be used as tools for creating sustainable societies, the well-being of individuals, and for solving the damage that we've done to nature. And then we put the partnership goal in the middle. And that's something that we would like you to have in mind when you do the dialogue meetings or in smaller groups later on. So it's time for action. Only 587 days until the 5th of June, which is the World Environment Day, because the Stockholm Conference started that day. So let's go. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Helena and Ulrich. If you will leave the scene, and we will now introduce the next speaker. Maybe we can end this presentation?
I guess so. Somebody can do it for me.
Thanks.
And I also wanted to say that we're very happy that now there will be a Stockholm Conference plus 50. And also very, very glad that we have Petter
Yeah, so
Hojem
warm
with us.
welcome, and I give him a warm round of applause. Petter Hojem, or Petter Hojem, the head of Secretariat for the 50 plus the Stockholm Conference. So please join us on stage.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much for the invitation here. To give you a bit of a backdrop, it's been a very strange year to plan and discuss international conferences. Not because there's not a need for discussing and moving forward the climate and environment agenda, but for very obvious reasons, COVID-19. So as for many other of you, it's been a strange time to discuss. It's been a difficult times because we have not been able to meet and discuss in the same ways that we would have wanted to do. But if there's one thing that I would say COVID-19 has also shown us, it is the interconnectedness between the people and the planet. We can see that there's so many, we are so interconnected, we're so dependent on each other, and crises like these, they tend to show those dependencies. So to give you a bit of an insight, when we are planning now Stockholm Plus 50 from the government office, and I'm then the head of the SMORE Secretariat within the Ministry of the Environment, tasked to coordinate that effort at our place. Thematically, we are looking very much into how to support building back better and greener, and thereby also achieving the Agenda 2030, and supporting what the UN Secretary General Guterres has called the Decade of Action. Because there are 10 years until 2030, and these have to be 10 years that we really move forward in order to reach those 17 targets that we all adopted in 2015. Also, I would say that thematically, we are looking into supporting how to redefine our relationship with nature. From one of exploitation to one where we live much more in symbiosis. And specifically, we're focusing on and looking into how we can leverage targets such as SDG 12, which is on sustainable consumption and production, which are horizontal and in very many ways both connect the economic zone with the environmental zone, and thereby give us tools to how to develop, for example, new green jobs that can help us move towards a more sustainable society, at the same time leaving no one behind. But another very important focus for this conference, which is something that was also highlighted in Helena's presentation, is youth. And to be blunt, if you look the last 2-3 years, what has been perhaps in a quite difficult global multilateral environment, what has been the actor that has been strongest in pushing forward decision makers, keeping up momentum and ensuring that there's pressure on progress towards Agenda 2030. I would say that is the youth movement to a very large degree. And so we're very much considering how to ensure that there's an outcome of Stockholm Plus 50 that is inspired by the call of the youth and thereby carry that message forward. But I also want to end on a tone what Stockholm Plus 50 is not. I've been to some 50th anniversary birthdays before myself. I'm sure quite a few of you have. And for me, very often they are one of the wildest parties of your life, because that's just when your kids are usually grown enough so they can take care of themselves. You don't have to think about that anymore. And so you can let loose and have a great party. The very clear message from my political leadership is that this is not a birthday party. This is an opportunity to push the climate and environment agenda forward. That's the opportunity we want to use. So we're looking into that. And right now we are at the stage where we are, Sweden is consulting very much with other countries, because as always, this is an endeavor that we have to share with other countries and get them on board on the thematics and how to use Stockholm Plus 50 as an opportunity. But we're also, in a stage where we very much welcome input in terms of the thematics of Stockholm Plus 50. What can we achieve? How do we give the biggest added benefit to the other processes that are ongoing? And thus, therefore, I very much welcome these kinds of dialogues and events, and I'm grateful for the invitation. And I'm looking forward to listening in on what you have to say and to follow future events as well. And so thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Petter. I'm very glad that you're here today, and you will be part of the small dialogues also in a while. But before that, we're going to meet with Jan-Gustav Strandenaes, who is with us in Zoom, I guess, and he's a senior advisor on the sustainable development and governance. So warmly welcome, and applaud to you too, Jan-Gustav.
Thank you.
And now we're going to see if we have the audio in the room also, so we hear you.
Well, can you hear me now?
Definitely. Welcome.
Thank you. And I have a presentation. Should I share it with you now?
Definitely. We're so eager to see it. So please share with us your presentation, Jan. Warm welcome.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, I was asked to talk about the need for a national strategy for sustainable development to fulfill the 2030 agenda. And it is, of course, a theme that is very close to my heart because I've been working on this, I guess, most of my life. I also had the pleasure of being present in Stockholm back in 1972. I want to emphasize as one of the youngest delegates at the time, but still I was there. And I've been following these issues ever since. So just 2 seconds on our background. You already spoke about, as Peter Hojem said, going back to nature. And this is one way of organizing the SDGs that I think is very important. This is the way Rockström, professor, once put them together. And he said the lower level, the biosphere is non-negotiable. So without nature, nothing exists. And I think this is something we need to bear in mind when we are talking about that. So reconnecting with nature is an important thing. And then, of course, building the SDGs on top of that. And the other thing that we tend to often ignore is the interconnectedness or the interlinked nature of all the SDGs. This is another model from the Resilience Center at Stockholm University. And whether we always think about it in theory, but we very seldom do this in practice. And I want to also emphasize the most important document that we need to remember and preferably learn by heart. It is the 2030 Agenda basic document transforming our world. There are 4 elements to that: a preamble, a means of implementation and partnerships, the 17 goals, and the follow-up and review. And 90% of the discussions we have about these strategies is on the 17 SDGs, and we forget the rest. And I'll take you to that in a minute. Now, I am also very concerned about what's a fascinating thing which is happening in the world since 2015. And in many ways, this is spearheaded by the United Nations. And I call this the Global 2030 Sustainable Development Portfolio. It's an expanding knowledge, it's increasing complexity, but it's also adding to our understanding of the Sustainable Development Agenda. On the left-hand side, I've listed all the agreements that are the key agreements that have been taken since 2015, and we got the SDGs. We've got the 17 SDGs, the review indicators, the high-level political forum, the Addis Ababa Action Agenda on Finance, the Paris Climate Agreement, the Disaster Reduction Agreement from Sendai, the Samoa Pathway on small island states, and all the work of the UN. And on the right-hand side, we see how the multilateral system is increasing this understanding and increasing the knowledge. We got the data forum, the annual reviews from HLPF, national reviews. There will be a high-level meeting at the UN in 2023 and 27, indicator reviews, financing for development, and so on. And if we don't have a national coordinating body to deal with this, all this knowledge would either be forgotten or not implemented. So what should a national strategy contain? Well, it's an interesting thing because the UNDESA, which is coordinating this globally, has a series of World Public Series reports. And in 2018, they wrote, "Sustainable development has finally reached political legitimacy." Well, it was launched in 1987 by Nordahl and Brundtland at the UN. And we know this has been taking a while before we got it here. But still, they say there is a tendency to develop strategies along development thinking, which leads to one of 2 things. One, efforts are made to adapt development thinking to sustainable development and just tick the boxes for sustainability categories. Or the other way nations are doing it is to develop 2 strategies, one on traditional development thinking and the other one on the SDGs. In both cases, sustainable development is given a lower priority. So we are at a loss here, where we have a problem. This is an overview also made by UNDESA on how the national coordination is taking place today. The UN has 193 member states. 110 of these member states have no national coordination for sustainable development. And at the very bottom, you see my summing up, 44% of all UN member states have a coordination mechanism for the 2030 agenda. And my question to you sitting in Oslo is, of course, do you have a national coordination body? The Global Sustainable Development Report, the GSDR, was released in 2019. It's often referred to, but I think it's very seldomly read. And there they emphasize the transformation towards sustainable development will only be successful if it holistically integrate all the SDGs. And I also talk about the interlinkage between all the goals and the targets. And as I said earlier, often theoretically referred to, but not really carried out in real life. The VNRs, the Voluntary National Reviews, which now are given every year to the high-level political forum in New York, is a reflection on how the countries deal with the national strategies. To date, about 250 such VNRs have been developed and delivered since 2016. And there are four impressions you get from this. First of all, every country has one or another system that coordinates the 2030 agenda. Many of them only establish an ad hoc body to deal with the VNRs and the sustainable development the year they present the VNRs to the UN. Then there are countries with a holistic national strategy, but with the responsibility to coordinate this in a line ministry. They perform better. Then even better than that is country with a holistic national strategy for sustainable development with a responsibility at the top level, at the president's or PM's office. These VNRs have much more substance to the reports, and you can also think that they reflect real proper work on sustainable development. But the best ones, and very few have that, are countries with a holistic national strategy for sustainable development, with coordinating responsibility at the president or PM's office, and a functional multi-stakeholder mechanism to include everyone. Very few have that, and I think this is important. Now, choices are voluntary or enforced. And if you look at the 2030 agenda and you think what we should have and what we don't have, there are choices to be made. Either transformative or business as usual, either substantive change or symbolic change, either complex thinking or linear approaches, either long-term or short-term, either risk analysis, impact assessment, resource decoupled circular economy, or growth-oriented, only KPI matters for business or focus areas for NGOs, and a few relevant SDGs for line ministries. Are we going to have a holistic approach or a fragmenting approach? This is a big challenge when it comes to practical issues. So are there any successes? Yes, there are. Successful national sustainable strategies have been carried out in Germany, Finland, and Estonia. They're all coordinated with responsibility at the top level office, and they have multi-stakeholder mechanisms. Now, what about Sweden? You have a national coordinator. It's responsible to align ministry. He's working on a proposition with a basis for a national plan to be held in March 2024. And he will deliver a report to the parliament in March 2022. All this I have picked up from the official information from the ministries. I ask you, is this enough? Look at the German structure. It is focused at the Chancellor's office, and every line ministry and even NGOs report back to that on successes or failures. So why a strategy? Well, because a strategy gives us a lot of things that are important. It's a focus for national planning, framework for complexity and integrate the growing knowledge base. It's transformational thinking allowed in political context, private sector context, civil society context, research and academia. A national plan strategy gives us predictability and coherence in planning. It gives us the ability to integrate all goals, rule-based system against which performance can be measured, and a framework for achieving transformation. And what I find interesting is that private sector has been asking for this for many, many years. Okay, so the technicalities are SDGs, targets, 232 indicators. They are integrated, interlinked, and indivisible, people-centered, planet-sensitive, universal, implying economic, social, and environmental issues. And all this is picked up from the 2030 document that I referred to earlier. And finally, we need to have a new conceptual thinking, a new institutional architecture, a strong and active governance structures, proper accountability systems, transparency elements, participatory processes, and new due diligence approaches. A new economic system thinking, circular economy is just the beginning. And if you look at it this way, picked up by the basis in the 2030 agenda, this is how you can visualize this. To have transformative sustainable development, we need integrated, interlinked, indivisible, social, economic, environmental approaches, and universal, people-centered and planet-sensitive approaches. We need to keep all these 9 elements in our head when we do a national strategy. And I believe that only a strong coordinating body at the center of political decision-making in the government can do this. And the rest of us will do as best as we can. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Jan-Gustav. A warm applause for this. Thank you. A fantastic introduction, actually, to the next part of the agenda. So we're going to have some shorter inspirational talks and given some examples from organizations leading the way. So with me, right now, I hopefully will have 2 people on the screen from Zoom, and that is you, Martin, and it's also Anna Sundström, if I'm right. So if we can spotlight both of you, that will be great, Erik. If you can find both Martin
trying to get both of them into spotlight.
Yeah, see if you can solve that. We see both of you at least at some point. And here in the sofa, I also have Eva Karlsson, you're the CEO of Houdini Sportswear. We have Anna Sundström on the screen from the she is Secretary General from Olof Palme International Center. Then we have Martin Erickson. Right now we see you here in the room, Martin. You're working with the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network Northern Europe. That's a long name. So you have an abbreviation. So the abbreviation is UNSDSN minus NE. I love that. I mean, and then we have Tove Lönneborg, your chairperson for Northern Youth Sweden. And then it's me and Helena here. So we're going to give us some examples. Maybe we should start with you, Eva. You also prepared some kind of a presentation, hopefully.
Yes, I have some slides.
You have some slides. Can we find that slides from the super? Maybe we can have it there. Yes. Business leading the way.
So yeah. I can start by sharing that I'm the CEO of Houdini Sportswear, which is a Swedish outdoor company. We're based here in Stockholm, and we have our operations across the globe, mainly in 20 countries. And we've been designing for circularity since 2001. And the reason is, I guess, that we look at nature as the perfectly functioning, super complex system where there's a natural flow of resources that always stays a resource for something else. And we try to mimic that system in the way we operate and design our operations, meaning that we have natural flows of materials in loops so that nothing becomes waste, but rather stays a resource. That we create product flows so that there is a sharing of products instead of an endless linear way of using products. And then we also see our way of working in terms of open source and sharing knowledge as a way of mimicking nature. I mean, having some way of sharing our insights and knowledge across disciplines, but absolutely also with our colleagues in the business, so that we can elevate and evolve together. So we also ask ourselves, what is our impact on the world? And that is, of course, key. If you start looking from a systems perspective, you also realize that you really need to learn and understand the system and how you impact it. That's the only way to improve. So we look at the planetary boundaries, for instance, the framework to understand how we impact not only carbon, but and so forth, and which is the more normal way or conventional way of looking at the environmental footprint now, but rather how do we impact biodiversity, land, oceans, and so forth. And having that framework also on the intuitive side when working in the daily operations, but then of course also adding metrics to it, both are equally important, I think. We don't have to always rely on metrics, but rather have an understanding of our impact and have that as an intuitive insight. And then 2022, it's the sense of urgency is becoming more and more clear. But I think in terms of transitioning into a more into a strong movement, a clearly strong movement, there are three things I would say, and that is realizing the sense of urgency. There's no time to waste, really. And then from a business standpoint, I think we've had the way of doing business has been thinking that we have the right kind of to have profits at the expense of others. And if you think of that from a more human standpoint, it's weird. It's just not right. And there's for sure a potential for business to just raise the ambitions to become really, really good. And then I think we can achieve much more than we do today. And then the last thing is collaborating. Sharing knowledge and making sure that we evolve together.
Wow, so much insight in this. Thank you very much, Eva.
Thanks.
A lot of questions, of course, rising in my head, but we're actually not going to put up questions for you. It's more like, if I just sum up what you're talking about here, is like mimic nature in all parts of your organization, and also raising the ambitions, and not only using metrics, but also intuitive side. I really like that way of putting it. We'll have Anna Sundström now giving us a short presentation, and you do that from Zoom, I guess.
Yes, I am, and I'm sorry not to. Oh my God, sorry. Can you now all see my PowerPoint? No, I'll share it with you.
Not right now, but very soon, I guess.
1 second. Yes, there we go. Now I hope you can see it, and I'll also.
There we see.
Yes, I can even see that you can see it, so it's perfect. Yes, I'm joining you from Zoom. I'm sorry for this. I had hoped to be with you, as I do not live very far from where you are actually gathered, but due to sore throat, I thought it would be best if I stay at home. So my name is Anna Sundström. I'm Secretary General of the Olof Palme International Center, which is the international platform, or the platform for international solidarity work within the Swedish labor movement. And of course, working in the spirit of Olof Palme, as our statutes state, we of course also look at how to bring about a sustainable development. As you might all know, when the Stockholm Conference in 1972 was held here in Stockholm, it was Olof Palme who was the Prime Minister of Sweden, and he was also of course, very active in bringing about the event in Stockholm. So working in his spirit, of course, also gives us a great task when it comes to making sure that a sustainable development takes place. And well, where do we start from, so to say? We know that the greatest global risks, then according to the World Economic Forum, is, if you look at this, I guess it might be a bit hard for you, those of you gathered in the room there, to see it. But what is important, and what I wanted to just stress, is that we know that climate action future is the #1 greatest global risk. And of course, it brings with it a lot of other risks: food crisis, increased number of conflicts, global governance failure even, and also an increased migration. So these issues are so much interlinked, and we must also see the social and geopolitical tensions that negative or the climate change will bring about, and with also the negative economic effect. We can also see that the climate crisis is in fact also a crisis for justice. The climate crisis is climate injustice. The total emission per country and region shows that the biggest polluters are, of course, the most developed world, whereas we also know that the less developed world are also the ones taking the biggest hit. So it truly is also a political issue when it comes to the aspect of justice. This is also just to show that the richest 10% responsible for almost half of total lifestyle consumption emissions, and the poorest 50% are only responsible for around only 10% of the consumption emissions. Again, this is climate injustice. So, as I mentioned, Olof Palme, he was hosting the conference in Stockholm in 1972, and he then said that I'm certain that solutions can be found, but it is absolutely necessary that concerted international action is undertaken. It is indeed very, very urgent. At the same time, the feeling of urgency should not overshadow the fact that solutions will require far-reaching changes in attitudes and social structures. This was almost 50 years ago. So we can now conclude that we have wasted far too much time. And if time was very, very urgent in 1972, let's then realize the urgency that we now face. The thing I also then wanted to say was just to give a few examples on how we work on this. I said that it's a matter of justice, so I would like to then underline the absolute importance of also making the transition just. So from the trade union movement, we talk about a just transition, which would then mean that we also need to make it possible for people to transfer to the new economy, to new green jobs. And this will require also for us to put efforts into strengthening the social security systems. This is utterly important if we would also have the acceptance needed for people to also embrace the transition and the future, basically. Another aspect that we also work on, and I'm sure that Pella, who is also there with you, can talk more about this. It is ecocide as one way of also having a legal framework. We need a legal framework, international framework, because this is a global issue and it also needs to be handled on a global scale. So those are only two examples. We need the social structure in our societies, but we also, of course, need the legal structures to put pressure on our political leaders. Because if it's something that is currently lacking, it is political will. And this, of course, my final point, is also very much interlinked with the fact that what we now see around the globe is actually a backslide for democracy. Authoritarianism and nationalism is on the rise, and political leaders are putting their own country first. And this is totally fatal for our ability to also put the transition at core.
Thank you.
We need political leadership.
Thank you very much, Anna. A round of applause for Anna. Thank you very much for your insights and your ideas here. You're talking about how we need to distribute impact on many levels and find both social and legal structure for a just transition. So now it's time for you, Martin, again, and please keep it short if you can, so we keep up with the agenda. So Martin Erickson, here we go.
Thank you so much. I will do my very best to speed up things and do this quickly. My name is Martin Erickson. I work at the Gothenburg Center for Sustainable Development, and I am the network manager for something we call the thing with a very complicated name, Sustainable Development Solutions Network. And we have such a network also for the Nordic countries, and then you have Northern Europe after that. It's really nice to be invited here to present very briefly present this network to you. This network was founded already in 2012 under auspices of the UN Secretary General, and it is arranged in this way. It's a global network of multi-stakeholder and academic partners. It strives to implement scalable solutions in support for the SDGs and the Paris Agreement. And as you can see on this map, the network covers most of the world today. It is organized, as you can see, in national networks, which are yellow on this map, in regional networks, which are blue, and you also have countries that belong to both a national and a regional network. And as you can see in the top there, the Nordic countries are blue, which means we have a regional network, namely SDS in Northern Europe. So this is what we try to communicate. We want society to go from knowledge to actions for the SDGs. We have 60 members in our network. And these are mostly universities, as you can see here, but we also have research institutes, foundations, NGOs, and civil society. The 2022 Initiative Foundation, among others. We also have a youth network with 30 members that are either youth-led or target youth members. So what do we do then, you probably wonder. We try to summarize this on this slide. We do a lot of different things. In essence, we try to promote solutions. I completely agree with the concerns that Anna and others have expressed this morning, but we try to provide solutions. Of course, we facilitate collaboration among our members. Doing webinars is a common thing nowadays that we do, of course. We try to develop and provide resources. The SDG Impact Assessment Tool is just one example of those. The Solutions Initiative Forum are concepts that we have developed. We try to, of course, promote SDG action. We engage in research to policy interfaces. We work with universities to make sure that they also aligned their operations to the SDGs. And of course, we offer visibility to our members, both in the region, but also, of course, globally. Please get in contact with us. Please visit our website that you see at the bottom right corner here. Follow us in social media, and there at our website you can find much more information about the things that I tried to very briefly summarize to you here today. So we're always open for collaboration, irrespective if you're a member of the network or not. So just send me a mail or get in contact in any way you prefer. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Martin. A short applause for you too. Fantastic, interesting. Connecting the dots, I guess. Was it you, Martin, who wondered what that kind of role was? Isn't this exactly what it is? I guess. So next speaker up here is Tove Lönneboy. Not only are you chairperson, as I mentioned before, for this Nature and Youth Sweden, I heard that you were Environmental Heroes 2020 with the worldwide, what do you call it? Help me. WWF. Thanks. WWF. All those abbreviations. Yes, thanks.
Yeah, we're happy for that prize. Yeah, so you said earlier that the conference should be inspired by us, the youth. So I'm supposed to say something inspirational about young people's engagement. And as we all know, we're not doing it because it's fun. We're doing it because of fear of our future. And like with other types of problems, it does not matter that much if you take a step backwards, because then you can start again and you can take a new step forward, and in long term you can reach your goal. But that's not the case with climate change or with the environmental problems. I heard someone say that about environmental problems, that not to like win fast enough is also to lose, and I think it was quite a good way to express it. And with the corona crisis, we know that we can change very fast, and also that we want to do it if we need to. And now we really need to change. And we have this new generation that we don't want this world that the grown-ups sees as normal or as a nice world to live in. Like we want something else, and we care about other values than stuff and money, we want to keep our forests and we want to or meadows, and we want the world to live in. Don't want this new laptop or whatever it is. And there is millions of people, young people or kids that are mobilizing all over the world and want change. So don't be shy to make radical change. Like no one are happier than us to see that some companies are shutting down, or we will not be complaining if we not have this that we don't have like if you're not allowed to eat whatever because it's not good for climate or whatever. Like we just want this change. And for example, Nature and Youth are going to Germany every year and occupies coal mines. And when we come there, we meet like 6,000 other people that are doing the same. And it's people from all ages and with different backgrounds. And all these 6,000 people are aware of the consequences it might have. You might be taken by the police or whatever, but these consequences will not affect me as much as the climate change would. So it's, it's just, we really need to do something. We need like ecocide law, we need a new economic system, and that means that like some companies will shut down and some, we just need a really big change, I don't know how to end this.
No problem. I can take it from there, Tuva. Thank you very much. Round of applause for Tuva also. I hear you saying not only that you want a new world, it's time for a new world. You're talking about change and a new world with a broadened, I don't know what to call it, but maybe a definition of how we look at values and how we focus on them. 1 minute left to just summarize and looking into the future. There is things coming up, and of course 2022 is a set date, the 5th of June. But what happened before 5th of June 2022?
Before 5th of June 2022, we'll have to do all this that we've been talking about today and to really get into action.
And if you want to do it together with the initiative, it's possible?
It's absolutely possible. That's our main focus.
It's entirely possible.
Yeah.
That's great. So thank you everyone for joining today, and thank you also for the technical crew here. We have had help from Johan, Alex, Paka and Djarko, and Per was also here for a while. And thank you very much everyone that helped out with this, and hopefully we see you soon again. And don't forget to co-create, and if there isn't anyone else, it's us, and that's a perfect and entirely possible idea. Yes, you want to say something
just
more?
to mention, I will share with all of you here physically and digitally a link to a platform called Profinder. There you can register. It's like a mixture between Google as a search engine and LinkedIn for different competences. And then we've also included the 2022 initiative as a mission, sort of, to achieve different things related to that. So you can collaborate and get into action.
And you also want to invite people to the hackathon for the
exactly.
Best of the World competition.
Yes, exactly. We're going to have sustainability games. We're going to have hackathon to develop that. And let's get in touch and to set a date for that in November, maybe beginning of December. We'll see. And then we'll just have continued dialogue meetings and action.
And looking forward to meet you again. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.